Welcome back. A year ago, the Department of Justice released its findings into an investigation that found the Memphis Police Department uses excessive force, conducts unlawful stops, and unlawfully discriminates against black people when enforcing the law. Now the city at the center of the national attention as the Memphis Safe Task Force arrests more than 4,100 people since late September. Joining us now to talk more about how far Memphis has come and where it's going is the Reverend Dr. Earl Fisher of Abyssinian Baptist Church, who recently discussed these topics in an opinion piece for MS Now. Dr. Fisher, welcome back to 3 at 3.
Always glad to be with you, brother.
Always good to have you here. In that opinion piece that's seen nationwide, you recently wrote that the Memphis Safe Task Force is a political creation of the Trump administration and a clear example of punitive populism.
Yeah.
Why do you use those words?
Well, the punitive populism, I'm actually quoting a dude named Alex Caractasan in his book Propaganda. And what he is talking about is this lust for us to punish people, even when we subject people who are not guilty of anything to that same type of punishment. And so I think the Trump administration has been leaning into that type of ideology. And now here we are with so many people, over half the people who have been stopped at a traffic stop, over half the people who have been arrested as part of this Memphis Safe Task Force, not being involved in any kind of violent crime. And that's not what we were promised at the beginning.
What have we seen, though? Because the debate has been out there. A lot of people are still saying on one side or the other, crime is down.
Yeah.
And
no, that's a fact. No, that's a fact, and I don't think anybody who's being objective is objecting to the fact that crime is down. What I talk about in the article and what most people know to be true, and it was touted by the mayor's administration and the Memphis Police Department, crime was down before we ever formed a Memphis Safe Task Force. It was at a 25-year low. And so now, even though it has increased, part of what I'm discussing is what is the collateral damage of the ways in which our people are being policed, which is consistent with the findings in the DOJ report, which is a violation of people's civil and human rights.
So what is some of that collateral damage? Because Memphians, we're looking at ourselves, but also the rest of the nation also looks at Memphis. Should it be a model, and is that model a positive model or not?
I think the model should be grounded in truth, and that's what we've been lacking. You and I have talked about this before. Look at the numbers: 40,000 traffic stops and 4,000 arrests. So by those own numbers, 90% of the people who are being stopped, and we know that these are pretextual traffic stops. We know this is, as Stephen Miller talked about it here in Shelby County, broken windows policing to the next level. So you are talking about 90% of people who are not doing any kind of violent crime. Even out of the 4,000 that they have arrested, 60% of those not involved in violent crime, 40% of those immigration related. And if I asked you or any other journalist or any reasonable person, what is the grounding metric for success for the Memphis Safe Task Force, you would not be able to tell me what the answer is, because we don't know. They are winging it. I don't think this is a good model. It has some positive things happening in terms of execution of warrants, for instance. But I don't believe if you have mold in one part of your house, you're supposed to kick everybody out of the house and punish them and tear the whole house down just to get the mold out.
Let me ask you this, though, and this is one thing maybe you and I have not discussed in the many times we've had a chance to talk. What about our leaders here, whether it's on the city side, the county side, or maybe even the state side, when it comes to this discussion, debate?
Yeah.
Are we really talking to one another and really standing up for the city?
I don't think so. I don't think that there's been enough political courage. You've seen some in some instances, but it's clear the state apparatus with the governor, for instance, is definitely taking his cues from the federal administration. There was some back and forth about Mayor Young and whether or not he was in support of the task force. We see what Mayor Harris is doing and some of that stuff from a legal standpoint. So I think that there is some conversation about it, but it's not grounded in data and truth, and there's not enough political courage for us to get the facts out. And if we don't get the facts out, it is too easy for us to be exploited and then paraded around the nation as some model, as you mentioned earlier, of something that is happening when we know, based upon what we're living, just because you are silent does not mean you're safe, and suppression does not equal safety.
One last thing before we're completely out of time here. What's going on with your church, especially as we go into the holiday season?
Yeah, well, on a lighter note,
yes.
Since we have been celebrating the 20 years of ministry, and every year we try to do something around the Christmas holiday, one of the things we are doing is going to be giving away a whole lot of clothes that we've received throughout the year.
Okay.
So if anybody comes to our worship service this Sunday at 10 o'clock, immediately after service, anybody who wants all of the clothes that we have more clothes than we can count, and I'm talking about new stuff that you, matter of
New
fact,
stuff?
yeah, I want to give you something.
All right.
And then we also have a Christmas party that we have on Saturday at noon, so anybody's welcome to come to 3890 Mill Branch or figure out any of this information on our social media.
We got the information right up on the screen for you, Dr. Earl Fisher.
I always appreciate you, brother.
We'll be in touch.
Yes, sir.
Merry Christmas.
Same
All
to
right.
you.